there is certain recommendations by the Sarkaria Commission. Related to the Sarkaria Commission was established by the government to suggest a measures related to the center state relations. And one of the recommendations, and though we know that the 356, which is used by the center to impose a precedent rule, is also related to center state relations. So in a recommendations of Sarkaria commissions, he has also recommended related to the use of 356, use of article 356. It's clear? So we have done the comparison between 352 and 356. Any doubt? We have done 352. Any issue? See, if a question's language is like proclamation of an emergency, proclamation of emergency, then the questions is talking about which of the emergency. It always talk about the national emergency. So whenever there is a language like a proclamation of emergency, it means we need to deal with the article 352. Is this clear? Any doubt? So related to the last two topics, any problem, any issues which you want to ask? No? So there is certain judgments related to the 356, and actually we have discussed that there are certain cases in 1977 when the government changed, the Indira Gandhi government lose its majority and the Janta government had won the elections, and after getting an elected, they have given a notice to the 9 of the states related to their council of ministers, and they asked the council of ministers to suggest the governor that through which the precedent rule can be imposed in those states, right? And they have challenged this in the High Court, which the High Court has said it is a valid under the guidance under Article 365. Using the Article 365, they have directed, right? Yes or no? ये बंद कर दूं? Is it clear? So again, after the change in 1978, when the 1970 and 80, when the government again changed, right? So they have again issued a notice to the 9 respective states. And this time, the second notice under using the Article 365, they give a directions related to the secularism, that the states do not mentions the state do not mentions a subject related to secularism. ठीक है? 365 का यूज करते हुए सेंटर ने डायरेक्शंस दिया स्टेट्स को कि वो सेकुलरिज्म से रिलेटेड कोई भी गाइडलाइंस clear? चलिए, so is this clear? So now we will discuss. So this case, the directions we are doing emergency, ठीक है? तो 365 को यूज करते हुए गवर्नमेंट ने डायरेक्शंस दिया स्टेट्स को कि आप सेकुलरिज्म से रिलेटेड किसी भी मैटर पर लेजिस्लेट नहीं कर सकते हैं, एंड दे हैव डिसओबेड दैट डायरेक्शंस. उन्होंने स्टेट्स गवर्नमेंट ने डिसओबेड किया, एंड डिसओबीडियंस बाय द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट कंसिडर एज एन द स्टेट्स नॉट रनिंग अकॉर्डिंग टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस. स्टेट ने जो डायरेक्शन सेंटर की तरफ से उन्हें 365 में दिया गया उसको नहीं मानने पे उनके ऊपर 356 के अंडर में प्रेसिडेंट रूल लगाया गया. तो देयर आर सर्टेन केसेस फ्रॉम द 1977 till 80s which has on a multiple number of times the national state emergency has been imposed. 1977 से 80 के बीच में बहुत, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट चेंज हुई यहाँ पर. 1975 से 77 तक नेशनल इमरजेंसी चली, राइट. उसके बाद गवर्नमेंट चेंज होती है 1977 में. मुरारजी देसाई की गवर्नमेंट आती है, जनता गवर्नमेंट. उन्होंने उन राज्य अकॉर्डिंगली 9 स्टेट्स, हरियाणा, राजस्थान, ऑल दीज स्टेट्स, वहां पर उन्होंने गवर्नमेंट को सजेस्ट किया कि आप सजेशन दीजिए प्रेसिडेंट को ताकि वो नेशनल इमरजेंसी इंपोज कर सके, नेशनल इमरजेंसी इंपोज कर सके. उसको चैलेंज हाई कोर्ट में किया गया. हाई कोर्ट ने कहा द सेंटर इज द डायरेक्शंस बाय द सेंटर इज वॉइड, इट्स invalid, it is a valid under article 365, right. Then again the center change in around 79-80, the government at center, इंदिरा गांधी वापस आती है सरकार में. उन्होंने फिर उन्हीं 9 स्टेट्स को डायरेक्शंस रिलेटेड टू द सेकुलरिज्म and they have disobedient that directions, so they impose a president rule under article 356. So in the 1994 there was a case related to SR Bomai case, and this case is important, which has given directions to the center. Actually this case, SR Bomai case, has issued a guidelines on the basis of which the center can issue a precedent rule, how it can use a rule, precedent rule, while imposing it in a state. Similarly, there is a Sarkaria Commission also, which has been established by the government, and it has submitted its report, and the Sarkaria Commission was established on related to center state relations. Center state relations, सेंटर स्टेट रिलेशंस के लिए. तो इन्होंने सजेशंस, रिकमेंडेशंस दिया सेंटर स्टेट रिलेशंस के बीच में लेजिस्लेचर से रिलेटेड, हाउ द लेजिस्लेचर शुड बी परफॉर्म, एग्जीक्यूटिव से रिलेटेड. One of the suggestions of Sarkaria Commission is related to use of Article 356. How this should be used and what the guidelines, what should this center should adopt while using an 356. Is this clear? ठीक है. So now we will write down the SR Bomai case judgment under which the guidelines has been given related to Article 356. लिखिए, SR Bomai versus Union of India 1994. Supreme Court laid down the following guidelines. Following guidelines. The first, presidential proclamation dissolving a state legislative assembly is subject to judicial review. Is subject to judicial review. Second, if a state government works against secularism, president rule can be imposed. Next, there can be no wholesale dismissal of opposition. There can be no wholesale dismissal of opposition. Wholesale dismissal of opposition ruled state government when a new political party assumes power at center. Assumes power at center. Next, if president rules is imposed only on political consideration, the court can even restore the assembly. The court can even restore the assembly, right? Next, imposition of president rule and dissolution of state assembly cannot be done together. Cannot be done together. Imposition of president's rule and dissolution of state assembly cannot be done together. It means that the dissolutions will be done after the approval by the parliament. Next, state assembly can be dissolved. State assembly can be dissolved only after parliament approve president rule. Only after parliament approve president rule. It's clear? Next, the Supreme Court or High Court can compel the union government to disclose material on whose basis president rule is imposed on a state. President rule is imposed on a state. Next, the power of the president under Article 356. The power of president under Article 356 is a constitutional power and it is not an absolute power. The existence of material is a precondition to form the satisfaction to impose precedent's rule. Is a constitutional power, but it is not an absolute power. It means it has a limitations. It cannot act precedent on its own. They have to act according to the either on the report of the governor we have seen or otherwise. But by anyhow, the president has to work on the advice of Council of Ministers of Center. प्रेसिडेंट को हमेशा काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स के सुझाव पे ही काम करना है, इसलिए एब्सोल्यूट नहीं है. इट इज अ लिमिटेशन, देयर आर सर्टेन लिमिटेशंस, राइट, बट इट इज अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल पावर, इट इज नॉट डिस्क्रिशनरी पावर. ठीक है, तो दिस वाज अ जजमेंट इन एन एसआर बोमाई केस. Any doubt? So this is 356. So we have completed under the national emergency from Article 352 to Article 359. The last one in the league of an emergency is Article 360, financial emergency. Check. Any doubt? Nine. So how many times the financial emergency has been imposed in India? Financial emergency. ये तो हमने डिस्कस किया है, नहीं? इफेक्ट ऑफ नेशनल इमरजेंसी ऑन फंडामेंटल राइट्स 358 और 359. 358 क्या बात करता है? 358 किसके बारे में बात करता है? आर्टिकल 19 ऑटोमेटिकली सस्पेंड कब होगा? जब इम्पोजिशन ऑफ प्रेसिडेंट इन नेशनल इमरजेंसी ऑन अ बेसिस ऑफ वॉर और एक्सटर्नल एग्रेशन. अगर इन दो किसी भी ग्राउंड पर अगर इमरजेंसी इंपोज होती है, नेशनल इमरजेंसी, तो आर्टिकल 358 के अकॉर्डिंग आर्टिकल 19 ऑटोमेटिकली सस्पेंड हो जाएगा. एंड आर्टिकल 359 talks about the rest of the fundamental rights, and these fundamental rights have to be mentioned in a presidential order. प्रेसिडेंशियल ऑर्डर में जो भी राइट्स मेंशन होंगे एक्सेप्ट 20 एंड 21, जिसको 44th कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट एक्ट के थ्रू ऐड किया गया था. सो एक्सेप्ट 20 एंड आर्टिकल 21 के अलावा जितने भी राइट्स प्रेसिडेंशियल ऑर्डर में मेंशन होगा वो सारे राइट्स क्या होंगे? सस्पेंड हो जाएंगे ड्यूरिंग द पीरियड ऑफ emergency, national emergency, right? Any more doubt? ठीक है, क्लास में नहीं थे क्या? चलिए देन, फिनेंशियल इमरजेंसी. थ्री 360. So financial emergency will be proclaimed by the president. कौन इशू करेगा फाइनेंशियल इमरजेंसी? प्रेसिडेंट ऑन एन एडवाइस ऑफ द काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स. इट इज क्लियर. ओनली द नेशनल इमरजेंसी विल बी इम्पोज बाय प्रेसिडेंट ऑन द एडवाइस ऑफ कैबिनेट इंक्लूडिंग प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स. कैबिनेट के सुझावों पर, वो भी लिखित, इन द रिटन, इफ द कैबिनेट give in a written to the president, communicate to the president in writing including the prime ministers, then this is the only conditions by the to impose a national emergency. और ये 44th constitutional amendment act के accordingly insert हुआ था. clear? But in the financial emergency it says that the president, if the president is satisfied, now here also there is two ground. The reason to impose a national emergency is two, and what are the reasons? Threat of a security of India or any part of India. If there is a threat, then the national emergency would be imposed. Similarly, in a financial emergency, if the financial stability of the India or any part of India is under threat. Financial stability or credit of India is under threat, right? Is under threat, then the president will impose a financial emergency. If the threat is to whole of the India, then emergency will be imposed to whole of the India. अगर financial emergency या credit of India threat पर है, तो पूरे इंडिया में इमरजेंसी लागू होगी, फाइनेंशियल इमरजेंसी, या किसी पार्ट में, और एनी पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया. इफ द इमरजेंसी there is a threat to the financial stability or a credit of that part of India, then the imposition of emergency will be imposed only to that part. This is clause 1 of article 360. So clause 1 talks about the ground, the reason on which the financial emergency would be imposed. Is this clear? Any doubt? So clause 1 says, if the president is satisfied that the financial threat to the financial stability of India or a credit of India or any part of India is under threat, then it can impose a financial emergency using article 360. Is this clear? This is clause 1. Clause 2 is similar to all of the clause. Now the clause 2 has 3 sub-clauses. A. So 352 clause 2 talks about that the president may proclaim any emergency to varied or to revoke by a subsequent proclamations. इसको distribute. So it says the emergency may be varied or revoked by the president through subsequent proclamation. ठीक है. इमरजेंसी जो इम्पोज हुई है उसे अगर वो थ्रेट या आपका वैरिड कर सकती है या रिवोक कर सकती है. वैरिड मीन्स चेंजेस. अगर किसी पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया में है और किसी अनदर पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया इज ऑल्सो कमिंग अंडर द थ्रेट ऑफ ए फाइनेंशियल स्टेबिलिटी और क्रेडिट थ्रेटन, then that also can be included, right? If suppose that the financial emergency is imposed in whole of India due to the threat to the financial stability or credit of India, right? And certain part of that country is out of the danger. अगर कुछ part जहां पर stability आ गई है, financial stability और credit को अब threat नहीं है, where the situation is good, that can be put, that part can be, emergency would be revoked from that part. So this, the clause 2 point A means this. This is similar to the national emergency, similar to the president rule and similar to the also to the financial emergency. Is this clear? समझ में आ रहा है? ठीक है? Now B. So clause 2 point B talks about that the financial emergency shall be led before each house of parliament by the president. So the president, the financial emergency, unless and until it would be revoked. Is this clear? There is no required of approval, repetition of approval as it was required in national emergency and also in the president rule. They both required an reapproval of every times, but financial emergency does not require an reapproval. The once it will approved by the parliament within a period of 2 months, if the Lok Sabha is in sessions, and suppose that if Lok Sabha get dissolved before approving the emergency, so the life of the emergency will extend only to the period of 30 days from the date on which the Lok Sabha come into office after the elections. Is it clear? Is this clear? So B is laid before both the houses of parliament. And C talks about the method through which it can approve the financial emergency within a time period of 2 months. So within a time period of 2 months, both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, has to approve, and the approval to the financial emergency will be done by which majority? By simple majority. As we have discussed, if the majority is not mentioned under the any article, it means it works through the simple majority. It's clear? अब suppose that the Lok Sabha, before approving the emergency, financial emergency, get dissolved. So the life of the financial emergency will be only for the 30 days. 30 days from the date of the first day of sitting of newly constituted Lok Sabha, provided the Rajya Sabha in the meantime has approved it. This is the same conditions respected to the article 356. The difference here is only that in article 356, after getting an approval from the parliament, it get a life of 6 months. But in case of financial emergency, there is no such limitations of life is provided to the financial emergency. It means that it can be in a place in a proclamations until and unless executive withdraw their financial emergency. Is this clear? So this is financial emergency. Now we'll see the effect of financial emergency. Is this clear? Any doubt? अब आप लोगों को मैंने सरकारिया कमीशन रिपोर्ट दिया ऑन 356. So there are 12 suggestions related to 356 article recommendation given by the Sarkaria Commission. And this is necessary, you just go through it, and you have if you face any kind of issues, problem, we can discuss in a class. Okay? चलिए, now we will see the effect of 360. So what would be the effect? The first effect, it says the executive authority of the union. So under the effect, under article 360, it says the executive authority of union will give directions to the state executive related to the financial matter, financial stability. It means the decisions of the state executive related to in a financial matter will be come under the union executive, right? So the first effect of 360, that executive of union shall give directions to the state executive related to the matter related to the financial or finances. How to manage the credit of the state, how to manage stability of the state will be given by the directions by the union executive. Is it clear? Now second says that second effect of this, it also says that declarations, the declarations of financial emergency by the president, it includes the reduction of salaries also. A reduction of salaries. It means if the proclamation of emergency under article 360, that is a financial emergency, is imposed, it also means that it has an effect on the reduction of salaries, salaries of persons serving under the states, serving under states, judges of the Supreme Court and high courts. So the salaries related to these individuals or authorities will be reduced, may reduced, and allowances of these services can be reduced by the authority. Is this clear? This is the second effect of 360. Any doubt? नहीं? थर्ड इफेक्ट लिख लिया आपने? ये सब नहीं लिखा आपने? पहले ये लिख लीजिए, इफेक्ट लिख लीजिए। तो किधर खोए हुए थे? ठीक है, 360 क्लियर है। अब इमरजेंसी पूरा क्लियर हो गया, 352 and 356, 360 clear. Then there is a last effect. Now the last effect says that if the any bill related to the money bill and finance bill has to be kept for the reconsideration of president after it is passed by the state legislative assembly. The money bill and finance bill which the state legislative assembly passed, that has to be kept for the reconsiderations of a president during the financial emergency. It's clear? Money bill or financial bills are to be reserved for the consideration, sir, are to be reserved for the consideration of president after they are passed by state legislature. Is this clear? So yes, during the financial emergency, which it is not for the it is not to get an assent to the president, but it is for the considerations. Now it is, they are not bound, is not bound to give the signature of to, but they, during a financial emergency, the bill related to the money bill or finance bill which is passed. So during a normal time when there is no financial emergency, so during normal life it is a discretionary to the governor that if he wants he can reserve those bills for the president. But during a financial emergency it is a constitutional foundations that they have to keep that bill for the reconsiderations of a president. Now it does not talk that the president is bound to give the signature, but it is a president and is executive of the union, right? And the first effect we have seen that executive of the union shall direct the state executive related to the matter of financials, how to manage the stabilities of or financial or credit of that particular state. So that third effect, that reserving a money bill and finance bill, will come under this. Executive means president is the highest executive for the considerations of the president, and consideration of president, it means that bill will be considered by the council of ministers of the union. No. Is this clear? This is 360. And by this we come to an end to our emergency part. Any doubt? बोलिए. ऐसा किसने कहा आपसे? सरकार की तरफ से कोई अंदाजा नहीं था, गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से कोई ऐसा ये नहीं था. गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से तो ऐसा कोई ये नहीं था, अगर लगती भी व्हाट्सएप, अच्छा व्हाट्सएप यूनिवर्सिटीज, अगर फाइनेंस कौन सी इमरजेंसी लगती तब तो ग्राउंड तो मैंने बताया दो ही हैं, फिनेंशियल स्टेबिलिटी या फिर क्रेडिट ऑफ इंडिया अगर थ्रेट पर है तब लग सकती है, या किसी पर्टिकुलर स्टेट, किसी और इधर पार्ट में उसका स्टेट का क्रेडिबिलिटी है, फिनेंशियल अनस्टेबिलिटी हो तब लग सकती है। और फिनेंशियल इमरजेंसी अभी तक कभी लगी नहीं है इंडिया में, इसलिए इसमें चेंजेस भी नहीं हुए। लगती तो शायद चेंजेस भी हो जाते। क्यों लगी है? क्या आप ऐसा सोच रहे हैं, मुझे लगा याद कर रहे हैं कहीं लगी हो क्या? आप इधर उधर की बातों में आकर सवाल मत पूछा कीजिए ऐसे वैसे, ये लोग आपको फंसा देंगे। चलिए, इज इट क्लियर? एनी डाउट विद द इमरजेंसी? नहीं। नाउ विल स्टार्ट द पार्ट 20 विच इज, सॉरी, हाँ अच्छा हाँ सॉरी सॉरी सॉरी, ये ना, दिस वन ना, लिख लीजिए इसे। क्वेश्चन है कोई? चलिए, डन, सॉरी। So, amendment of the constitutions. So why we need amendment to the constitutions? क्यों पार्ट 20 की जरूरत पड़ी देने की? क्यों 368 प्रोविजंस है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस में? अच्छा, और नहीं, वो बात इन्होंने बोल दी। ठीक है, और अगर मान लिया 368 नहीं होता तब, अगर इफ देर इज नो प्रोविजंस रिलेटेड टू आर्टिकल 368, देन जो उन्होंने कहा somehow is true, to change the circumstances the people or the masses would have restored to the revolution. To avoid such kind of revolutions, to avoid such kind of those which we have, through which, as we all know, that the Constitution of India is not a product of a gift through any individuals or by any government or country to the India, but rather it is a product of a revolutions, of struggle of our forefathers for many of years, and experience based on those struggles, which is a product, is a constitutions of India. So it is so precious that the forefather has thought to preserve those constitutions, to save the constitutions. It is better to give provisions to amend, that the future generations should amend these constitutions according to their wish, to accommodate the individuals or the generations aspirations should be accommodated in the constitutions, and the constitutions has been put in such a delicate manner, not wholly under the control of the union, like a flexibility, is not as rigid as the other constitutions of the world, that easily it can be, whenever the need, it can be changed. Yes or no? And related to this, that Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar has once said in an assembly that if anyone has any doubt related to the any provision of the constitutions, he need a majority of 2/3. Okay. So he said, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar once said that if any individuals or any group, they think that the constitution is not according to their will, so they need a majority of 2/3 of the house to change the provisions of the constitutions. And if that group or individual is not in a position to get a majority of a 2/3 of the support, it means that provisions is not a matter of concerns for the other also. So to accommodate a future generations, to avoid such revolutions through which the constitution has been established, the 368 is provided. It's clear? Now we have discussed in a classes where we have discussed the features of rigidity and flexibility of the constitutions, right? So there the two term, that is flexibility, it means an easy way to modify, right? Amendments mean what? Amendments mean it is given power to the parliament either to modify, either to add some part, or to remove, to modify, to amend. This is the power given to the amendment to the parliament, yes or no, right? So there are certain parts, flexible part of that, known as a flexible part of the constitutions, like Article 4. What is Article 4? Article 4. Then Article 169. Article 239A. Article 4 talks about whatever changes were made by the Article 2 or Article 3, that does not amount to be the amendment to the constitutions. Article 169 talks about the abolitions or creation of council in the state, legislative council in the states. Article 239A talks about the UTs giving a status of a legislative state like Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir has been given a status of legislative assembly through the Article 239A, which is similar applicable to Puducherry also. Yes or no? As we know that Article 239 and Article 240 is related to the administrations of UTs, right? And Article 239 AA and Article 239 AB is related to the Delhi, administrations of Delhi, National Capital Region of Delhi. So these articles, which are so flexible to change, which does not amount to be amendment to the constitutions. So certain part of the constitutions changes, amendment, modifications are kept under the flexibility of the constitutions, which does not even counted as an amendment to the constitutions. But certain parts are there for which required an amendment of the constitutions. Is this clear? That part is known as a rigidity part of the constitutions. Rigidity part of constitutions. Like part 3rd, part 4, election manner of president, 7th schedule, 368 itself, relations between state and India Union. So these are certain parts kept under the rigidity provisions of the constitutions, which has been given under Article 368. Is this clear? So now let's start Article 368, Part 20. Article 368, amendment to the Constitution. Now, so Article 368 talks about only two type of majority through which constitutions can be amended, and we have discussed it when we have discussed the majority. So 368 talks only about the two types of special majority. Let's say A and special majority B with ratifications by state legislature. It means any changes were done, anything through Article 4, 169, 239A will not be considered as an amendment to the constitutions under Article 368, because these were so flexibly changed that they works as an ordinary bill with the simple majority. समझ रहे हैं? Is this clear? चलिए, let's discuss then these two of the amendments. So first we will discuss the general features related to amendment to the constitutions. Clear? So the first we will discuss the general features related to Article 368. So the first, Article 368, which says that the amendment to the constitutions can be done, and it is done only by the parliament. So Article 368 vested power, or empowers the parliament, and not to any separate body the power to amend the constitutions. It's clear? It means that the parliament is the only authority who can amend the constitutions. Like the constitution has been made through a constituent assembly, a separate dedicated body was there to make the constitutions, right? So the article 360 says that there is no requirement of any separate body or committee to amend the constitutions, but this amendment of the constitutions can only be done through the Parliament of India. It also means that the state legislature has no role, no power to initiate any bill to amend the constitutions. Are you getting my point? So the state legislative assemblies or a state legislature cannot initiate a bill to amend the constitutions. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस का अमेंडमेंट सिर्फ और सिर्फ कहां हो सकती है, किसके थ्रू हो सकती है? पार्लियामेंट के थ्रू. पार्लियामेंट में ही बिल अमेंडमेंट के लिए पेश हो सकता है. किसी भी स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर के पास ये पावर नहीं है कि वो बिल रिलेटेड टू द अमेंडमेंट को पेश करे. ना ही कोई ऐसी हमारे यहां सेपरेट बॉडी है जो पहले जैसा एक बॉडी थी कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली जिसने संविधान को बनाया, लेकिन ऐसी कोई अब कोई ऐसी बॉडी नहीं है. ये सारे पावर किसके वेस्टेड है? थ्रू द आर्टिकल 368 कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने किसको दिया है? पार्लियामेंट को. बिल्कुल नहीं, ये तो डिस्कस कर लिया हमने. पार्लियामेंट के पास पावर है संविधान को बदलने का, मॉडिफाई करने का, अमेंड करने का. कोई आर्टिकल को ऐड कर सकती है, किसी आर्टिकल को हटा सकती है, कुछ नया उसी आर्टिकल में क्लॉज ऐड कर सकते हैं, कुछ भी कर सकते. इट कैन अमेंड. अमेंडमेंट मीन्स मॉडिफिकेशंस, वेदर बाय एडिंग समथिंग, subtracting something, removing something. This is an amendment, but they have to adhere to the basic structure doctrine. Now to the amendment of the constitutions, the cases are similar which we have discussed under the fundamental rights, starting from the Shankari Prasad, Sajjan Singh, Golaknath, 24th amendment, which is the 24th amendment act was there to revert the judgment of the Golaknath, which has snatched the power of parliament for the amendment, and it says that the article 13 is applied to article 368 also. Yes or no? Are you getting my point? ठीक है? Is this clear? Next. Now it says that a bill related to the amendment of the constitution can be presented by either government member or private member. In parliament. Means the bill related to the amendments can be initiated not only by the government. It is not only the government is authorized to present a bill related to amendment, but the private members can also initiate a bill which requires an amendment to the constitutions. Like means government members is clear or not? Those who are a part of the council of ministers. जो council of ministers के members हैं, they are known as a government bill, right? Other than the members who are not a part of the council of ministers, और अगर वो कोई bill पेश करते हैं तो they are known as a private member bill. Recently in 2019 there was amendment of bill is introduced in the house by a BJP leader. Though BJP is in a power, but that individual MP is not in a council of ministers, so the bill is known as a private member bill because he has is outside the Council of Ministers, and he has presented a bill related to amendment of the preamble. प्रियम्बल में नहीं हो सकता अमेंडमेंट? पूछ रहे हैं, बता रहे हैं, हो सकता है, बिल्कुल हो सकता है. 42nd अमेंडमेंट से प्रियम्बल में ऐड हुए 3 वर्ड, सोशलिस्ट, सेकुलर और इंटीग्रिटी. पूरा प्रियम्बल ही बेसिक फीचर है. नहीं, it can be amended. It is a part of constitution. He wanted to see, अब उस बिल को मैं रुकिए. He wants that there is term justice, social, economic and political justice, right? So in justice, in social, he needs that the other than the social, political and economic justice, the food security should also be included. Means the amendments to the preamble is done such that the preamble itself include that not only the social, economic or political justice would be produced, but instead of only of these, the food and living being of the individual should also be an objective of the preamble constitutions. Are you getting my point? Yes or no? Any doubt? नहीं है, बट वो स्पेसिफिकली जैसे सेकुलरिज्म को स्पेसिफिकली उसमें मेंशंस किया गया ना, लाइक उसी तरीके से. इट्स बीइंग अ प्राइवेट मेंबर बिल, इसलिए अभी तक कुछ उस पर एक्शंस हुआ नहीं है. क्लियर? ठीक है. दीज नाउ नेक्स्ट लिख लिया आपने. नेक्स्ट, सो द नेक्स्ट सेज the previous sanction of the president is not required to introduce the constitutional amendment bill. Previous consent of president is not required to present or introduce a constitutional amendment bill in either of the house. Clear? ठीक है. There is no requirement of presidential previous sanction or order or permissions. Similarly, the constitutional amendment bill can be introduced in either of the houses. लोकसभा और राज्यसभा किसी में भी इंट्रोड्यूस हो सकता है, राइट? डज द ज्वाइंट सिटिंग इज नेसेसरी फॉर द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट बिल? आर्टिकल 108 इज एप्लीकेबल टू 368? नो. नो. व्हाई? Why 108 is not applicable to 368? ज्वाइंट सिटिंग अलाउड नहीं है 368 में अंडर द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट बिल. नहीं, बट वो है ना. सो यस, द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट बिल डज नॉट allows for joint sitting of parliament. Oh. नहीं नहीं इमरजेंसी पर आते हैं. एनी डाउट? चलिए, so this is now what we are discussing. चलिए चलिए, so we are discussing now the provisions of joint sitting under 108 is does not applicable to 368. Why? What does the 108 provision says? It says that if any dispute arises between any either of the house in a parliament related to any bill other than money bill and constitutional amendment bill, so that bill can be decided through a joint sitting of that house. But if if related to the constitution amendment bill, if suppose the joint sitting is allowed, so it will be a kind of it will give a power to that majoritarian party who has a majority in the Lok Sabha, because the Lok Sabha presides, Speaker of the Lok Sabha presides over the joint sitting, and the rules and regulations of the Lok Sabha is applicable to 108. So to avoid that kind of situation, that party which has a majority in the Lok Sabha does not use its majority for a bad intentions to impose those kind of amendments which is against the constitutions. So to avoid that, kind of situations, Article 108 is not applicable to this. It's clear? Now, next is, can the President of India deny giving his assent to the Constitution Amendment Bill? He is bound to give his assent to the bill. By 24th Constitutional Amendment Act 1977, which has which has made a change of major of the provisions, has also bounded the President to give his assent to the Constitutional Amendment Bill. It means before the 24th of the Constitutional Amendment Act, before the 22nd, हाँ बताइए एक साथ. 1972 में, 1976 और 24th कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट एक्ट ने चेंज किया क्या? इट हैज चेंजेस टू द आर्टिकल 368 clause 2 with the president shall give his assent to the assent. This has been changed. The word in the article 368 clause 2 which says that president shall give his assent to the bill, and this shall make the foundations on the president to assent the constitutional amendment bill. Is this clear? It means before the 24th constitutional amendment bill, the president is not bound, may give his assent was a language of the constitution. Bound. It means he cannot access any of the options available with him. He is bound to give the signature. Before the 24th amendment, that the word was may, which allows the president to avail other options which is available to him. But after the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act, it made an obligatory on the president to give any of the amendment to the constitutions, any bill of the constitutions. Is this clear? Any doubt? ठीक है? और क्या चेंजेस हुआ था by the 24th? 368 में clause 3 ऐड हुआ था, right? चलिए, so this is, there are certain principles related to the amendment of the constitution. There are certain features. लिख लिया आपने? Features has been written. चलिए, now we will discuss the article 368. So article 368 has a 5 clause. Clause 4 and 5 is been repealed. So it remain with the clause 3 clauses. So clause 1 of the article 368 states that the parliament, by using a power under article 368 by a means of additions, subtractions, or by repealing any of the article, has power to amend the constitution. It means the clause 1 of the 368, it empowers the parliament to amend the constitutions. So clause 1 of 368 gave power to the parliament, give power to the parliament by way of addition, subtractions, गर्मी होने लगी, variation. So by through this method it can amend the constitutions. Clause 2 of the article 368 is talked about the majority. So now we will discuss clause 2 in details. ये लिख लीजिए. Any doubt? हो तो पूछिए, नहीं? So now we will discuss clause 2 of the article 368. Clause 2 of article 368. So clause 2 of article 368 talks about the majority which is required to amend the constitutions of the two types. First, when the federal character is not involved, so what majority is required by the parliament to pass the bill? And one thing which has been stated under the Sankri Prasad, that the constitution amendment bill will be passed as an ordinary bill, will be treated as an ordinary bill in the house, but only with the certain conditions, that ordinary bill does not require a special majority, it requires a special majority, but the procedure of the passage of this constitution amendment bill will be treated as an ordinary bill. So clause 2 talks about that part where the federal character of the constitution is not involved. Like fundamental rights, part 3rd, and directive principle of state policies, part 4. If the parliament wants to amend either of these part, then they required, and this changes anything they wants to variate or additions, or they want to repeal anything, any article from these two part, it can only be done through the amending the constitutions, not by an ordinary bill. It can only be done through an constituent bill. So to make any changes in this two part, it needs a majority of total membership of the house supported by majority of not less than 2/3 members present and voting. This method should be done separately by each houses, because a joint sitting is not allowed in a amendment bill of the constitutions. This is clear. And when it is required, when they want to make any changes in the part 3rd or part 4th. Clear? ठीक है? Any doubt? नहीं? And if each house pass the bill through this majority, it will be presented to the president for his assent, and by the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act, the president was made bound to give his assent. So if this majority was required by the parliament, and after passing of the bill, it will be presented to the president for his assent, and the president will assent that bill, and after the assent given by the president, the bill will become an act. Is it clear? Any doubt? No? Now we will discuss the majority which is required when the federal character is in question. How the amendment to those part or article where a federal character of the constitution is at stake. So this comes under the rigidity part of the constitutions. So the flexible changes made by the parliament through a flexibilities does not amount to the amendment of constitutions. Flexibility changes means by a simple majority. If they make any changes to the constitution through a simple majority, which does not considered even as an amendment under Article 368. So Article 368 talks only about the special majority, and that is of two types. It does not ever talk about the amendment of a constitution by simple majority. If anything has been done, changes had been made into the constitutions through a simple majority, that will not amount to the amendment of the constitutions under Article 368 part 20. Is this clear? 368 comes under the part 20. Okay. Now so you have written it down. Next. So next, under clause 2, the next thing, which if any federal character is involved, then federal character means like Article 54, 55, the election manner of president. If anything, Parliament want to change under Article 54 or Article 55, that which is a federal character where the involvement of the state units is there, right? Then next is Article 73, 162, executive power of union and state, executive power of union and states, state. Then Article 241 related to the High Court and Supreme Court judges. Article 241, Supreme Court and High Court. If anything wants to change, make an amendments under Article 241, that's come under the federal characters. Next, from 244 to 255, from Article 244 to 255, from Article 244 to Article 255, which talks about the distributions of legislative power between union and states. Relations of distribution of legislative power between union and states. ठीक है, ये लिखिए, नोट कीजिए. No. There is no subclause in B. These provisions were given. These are not mentioned in the article. It says that if anything they wants to change where the federal character is means to change. So we are discussing which type of federal character, if it is amended by the parliament, required a majority. So these are the federal character which we are talking in, which has been given under the clause 2. Is this clear? Have you written it down, everyone? So next is 7th schedule, Article 246. Distribution of legislative power between union and states. ठीक है. Next is Article 246, which is 7th schedule. Then Article 80, 81, which talks about the 4th schedule of the Constitution, which is a representation of states in Council of State. Article 368 itself, Article 368 itself. So if the parliament wants to make changes in any of these of the given articles, they required the majority of the second type. It talks in the 368 clause 2. So now we will discuss that majority. Is this clear? 269. That is 269 GST also. And that is added by 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. GST also added by 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. So if any of the changes, if Parliament wants to change any of these provisions under this the mentions, whether Article 54, 55 or all these, the Parliament requires the same majority which is been required by the majority in a non-federal character, that is majority of total membership of the House supported by majority of not less than 2/3 members present and voting. So by this majority, the Parliament will pass any of the changes made in these of the articles. There is only one difference is here, that if any of these articles has been affected through the any of the amendment done under by the Parliament by the 368 using a power of the 368. So after the Parliament has passed the bill through this majority, and before representing the bill to the President, so before representing the bill or before sending the bill to the President for his assent, the bill to the President for his assent, the bill will be sent to the state legislature for their ratifications. So any of the mentions, clauses, articles were need to be changed by the Parliament, that the Parliament firstly required to pass those bill through the amendments by the required majority, and before sending that bill to the President, the bill will be sent to the legislature of the states. अब आ रहा हूं, अब बता रहा हूं, राइट? यहां तक क्लियर है? Now, then the condition says that 368 clause 2 that not less than half of the state, if not less than half of the state legislature ratified the bill, ratified the Constitution Amendment Bill with simple majority, then that bill will be sent to the President for his assent, and the President is bound to give his assent to the bill. So the required majority is not less than half of the states. It means more than half of the state has to ratify that bill, And there is no time limit is mentioned in this, that within what period of time the state has to ratify that bill. It can be an unlimited, right? Whenever they want, at what time or period they can ratify it. As soon as the bill required or approaches the majority of half of the bill, more than half of the state has been ratified the bill with simple majority, it will be presented to the president for his assent. So through the second method, the parliament amend those federal character where the involvement of the units or the provinces or the states were involved with the states, like the distributions of legislative power, seventh schedule, a list, first list, second list and third list, election of the president, and many more of this, including the article 368 itself. Any doubt? So you can write certain examples through which the parliament had used this method to pass certain amendment bills, like second constitutional amendment bill, article 81 was amended, and article 81 talks about the representations of states in council of states. लिखा है आपने article 80 and 81. Then third constitutional amendment act has changes seventh schedule. The latest was 104th Constitutional Amendment Act 2020, which has changes under the 334, Article 334. Sorry, 104 2020 had made changes in 334, Article 334. Representation of seats in the Lok Sabha. There are certain seats reserved in the Lok Sabha, na? Anglo-Indian, SC/ST, and Anglo-Indian seat was abolished. The reservation was abolished by this act, and the reservation of SC and ST act was continued for the next period of 10 years till 2026. Is this clear? Any doubt? So by this we come to, and if we go with the cases related to the ये लिख लिया आपने? Everyone? So the cases related to the Constitution Amendment Bill, that is Article 368. So we can start with the Sankri Prasad case, Sajjan Singh case, then Golaknath case. This all we have done. So this Sankri Prasad involved the first Constitutional Amendment Act was challenged in 1950, through which 31A, 31B was inserted, Article 19, Clause 1 was inserted. Yes or no? Then the 9th schedule was inserted. Yes or no? Right? Then Sajjan Singh, under Sajjan Singh, the 17th Constitutional Amendment Act was challenged. Okay. Then Golaknath, the Sajjan Singh case was referred to the Golaknath bench, highest bench. Then after Golaknath, it came the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act, which has added a clause 3 to the Article 368. And clause 3 of the Article 368 says that nothing in the clause Article 13, which is a restrictions on the amending power of the parliament, shall apply to Article 368. So clause 3 of the 368 talks about that nothing in the Article 13, and Article 13 is a restrictions on the parliament's power to make any laws which can amend the which can inconsistent with the fundamental rights. So nothing in Article 13 will apply to Article 368. So these changes was done through the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act, and through the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act, the Parliament has invalidated the judgment given under the Golaknath, and they have retained their power of amendment in their hand through the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act. Is this clear? Then after this, after 24th came the 25th, 26th, and then the historic case, Kesav Nanda Bharti case in 1973, which propounded the theory of a doctrine of basic structure. So after Golaknath, so if we go with the cases, if we are saying the cases, is this clear? Then after this, Kesav Nanda Bharti case 1973, and under this case doctrine of basic structure was propounded. Doctrine of basic structure was propounded. Okay. After this case, what has happened? They came with the, now after this case, after the case of Nanda Bharti case, there is another debate arose related to the judicial review, due to which all the amendments were getting challenged in a court. So they came, the another next event of in the series is 39th Constitutional Amendment Act. Yes or no? And this 39th was challenged in Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan case. Okay. Then after this, the government came with the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. सब हमने किया है. This all we have done under the fundamental rights. अगर वहां नहीं करते तो यहाँ करना होता. So we have done there, right? So after this, again, government came with the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Then it also again negate the judicial review, which has been again decided in the Minerva Mill case, and under this Minerva Mill case, the judicial review was put under the basic structure of the constitutions, which has been given by the Kesav Nanda Bharti case. And after this, there is one another case, is Vaman Rao case in 1980 or 81, and this case is related to stating that the judgment given by the Kesav Nanda Bharti case, which came on the 24th of April 1973, is applicable prospective, not a retrospective. So this doctrine of basic structure will be applicable to only those Constitutional Amendment Act which is made after the judgment is given, not before the judgment is given. Is this clear? And the last is in the series of the cases, I.R. Kohlio case related to the judicial review. So this is the sequence of cases under the 368 which we have discussed under amendment of the fundamental rights. Is this clear? Any doubt? So by this end we come to an end to our amendment of the constitutions. So now can we have the sheet? So emergency provisions 1 to 9 is over. Any doubt in that? 1 to 9. ठीक है? Then 10 is over, 14 is over, 365. ठीक है? Then now in amendment 15 is over, bill that passed by parliament by simple majority, article 4, 169, 239A, constitution amendment bill 16, 17 amendment by special majority, amendment bill that requires ratification by state legislature, presidential assent to the amendment bill 24th, 42nd, 44th and 86th. Over. Now see the questions. First can be written down. Discuss the meaning of breakdown of constitutional machineries under article 356, that the state, article 355 state that the union is duty bound to look whether the state is functioning according to the constitution or not. If not, then article 356 will be imposed. लिखा जा सकता है. Constitutional machinery breakdown means they are not running according to the constitutions which is mandated by the 356 and it is 355 and it is duty of the union to see this whether they are working or not. हाँ, क्या पूछ रहे थे आप? 369 नहीं 356 के बेसिस पर ही नहीं, वो different. That means they can, if they give any direction, then 365 is a power given to the union that they can also give any direction to the state. But here talks about the 356 constitutional machinery breakdown. और ब्रेकडाउन किस सेंस में होगी अगर वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल के अकॉर्डिंग रनिंग नहीं कर रही है तब. सो दिस कैन बी रिटन. effect, what do you know about article 356? Simple. Financial emergency, how many time has it been announced so far? ठीक है. Then highlight the importance of 42nd. We have done many of times. This 101st Constitutional Amendment Act is need a GST. Article 7. Question 7. Question number 7. फंडामेंटल राइट्स में हमने डिस्कस किया था. सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ इंडिया कीप्स अ चेक ऑन आर्बिट्ररी पावर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट अमेंडिंग कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस. ये सारे केसेस जो हम डिस्कस कर रहे थे, थ्रू दिस दे हैव kept in check. 8. Half of the answer 8 is written down. Constitution Amendment Bill क्या procedure है to pass it, and half we will done when we will start the parliamentary. Do you believe that the procedure for amendment makes constitution a plaything in the hand of the center? सारे प्रोविजन लिख दीजिए कि किसी के लिए मेजोरिटी क्या चाहिए और किसी फेडरल कैरेक्टर्स के इन्वॉल्वमेंट में स्टेट के भी चाहिए. इसका मतलब स्टेट सेंटर के हाथ में सिर्फ वो बातें हैं जो सिंपल मेजोरिटी से चेंजेस हो सकती हैं. लेकिन अमेंडमेंट टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अंडर आर्टिकल 366 इट मे बी अ प्लेथिंग इफ ज्वाइंट सिटिंग इज अलाउड, but it is not allowed. So it has to pass through the special majority litmus test. वर्ड आप यूज कर सकते हैं लिटमस टेस्ट का, दैट द सेंटर हैज टू पास थ्रू द लिटमस टेस्ट, राइट. Which amendment was made in the preamble of Article 76? Discuss its importance. सोशलिस्ट, ये हमने प्रियम्बल में ही कर लिया था. सोशलिस्ट, सेकुलर और इंटीग्रिटी, उसको आप डिस्क्राइब कर सकते हैं. सो द क्वेश्चंस एंड द की फाउंडेशन वर्ड, कीवर्ड्स फाउंडेशन इज ओवर. अब 2-3 बचे हैं, दैट विल बी कवर्ड इन नेक्स्ट क्लास. इसको पढ़ लीजिएगा, दिस इज एन इम्पॉर्टेंट, गुम मत कर दीजिएगा. ये जितने भी इस टाइप के मैं जितने भी आपको दे रहा हूँ ना, दैट इज रिलेटेड टू द गवर्नेंस. पिछली बार मैंने आपको 2 शीट, इससे पहले 2 शीट प्रोवाइड कराए हैं मैंने आपको. दिस इज द थर्ड वन. आने वाले समय में और भी मिलेंगे. दिस ऑल रिलेटेड टू गवर्नेंस. सो इट इज एन इम्पॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन. सब यहीं से आते हैं. उसका ये मतलब जो हम कर रहे हैं उससे नहीं आते हैं, उससे भी आते हैं, बट these are the important. This should be inculcated in this. Is this clear? चलिए then, thank you.